So I've given the fiberglass enough time to cure. So now what I'm doing, I don't know if I'll be able to get focused on this maybe. Come on, you want to focus right there. There it is. So I think if I put my hand on it, there you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this small file. And I'm just cutting into the fiberglass to shape the hole so it's exactly the same. So I'll just punch a hole here either with a drill, most likely with a drill, and then I'll do the same kind of thing where I'll file this out so you can see it opens up. And then I'll go ahead and I'll get some Bondo on the broken pieces and we'll let that cure up, and that should allow us to go ahead then and sand this with some 220 into shape. And from there we're ready to get some primer on it. And then once that's all set up, we'll be ready to take the 4 pieces that we've primed, get them wet sanded smooth, and have them ready for some paint. So let's get this panel finished up. So we take a look at the holes. We've got them cleaned out now. So if you look at the back, you can see how the fiberglass is along here, holding this crack piece, holding this crack piece down here on this crack piece. And we've got our holes cleaned out. So now I'm going to mix up some Bondo. We're going to go ahead and start whacking some Bondo down over all these rough spots. And we'll let that dry. And we'll start shaping that. We might have to do that a couple times because when we get Bondo down in these holes, it's going to shrink and suck down into the holes. So a couple coats of Bondo, we should be all right to go. So let's get some Bondo mixed up and get it put on this panel. Okay, so let's see if we're getting some of this body filler down into these cracks and holes. Let's see if we can't make this look half decent. So I'm gonna call that coat 1. See, I got this hole here filled, these holes here filled, this crack here filled, kind of level off a bit. Once it's dry, we'll give it a good sanding. I wish I didn't mix up so much Bondo. Not like it's a ton, I've got a full thing, waste not, want not, even still. But we'll give this the requisite amount of time to dry, come back and hit it with some aggressive sandpaper, like some 150. Check out what we got with these holes, probably get the file in there. We're definitely gonna end up doing another coat just to get the final shape. Just no way around it. So let's let this cure up and we'll get back to it. So while I'm waiting for that Bondo to cure up so I can sand it, I haven't had this thing running in a few weeks, so I'm going to get it kicked over, set up the camera, take a quick run up and down the road on it just to stretch our legs out a bit. Go ahead and work on this for a bit and we'll bring you back and have a look before we put the second coat on. So here's the state of things after round 1 of, man, this thing's not focusing at all today. Round 1 of sanding and a bit of filing. So I've got these holes shaped. This one here shaped pretty decently. We've got a low spot right here. Got a low spot right here. And that should be pretty much it. So I'm going to mix up another bit of Bondo, apply there and there, maybe do another little skim over these places again just to make them a bit smoother, as well as here on the face. And then we'll go ahead and set this to dry once again. And we'll go ahead and take a bit of a further look at our blade assembly. So I've got coat number 2 of the body filler on the panel here. I'm pretty sure this will be enough now for us to get this to final shape, so then we'll be ready to sand and prime it. So in the meantime, what we're going to go ahead and do, I just got that in front of the heater there so we can cure up a bit quicker for us. Either way, I'm going to go ahead, clean up our headlight housing. The inside I'm not really too concerned about. I'll probably still give it a couple squirts of brake clean just the same. I'm going to clean up the outside with brake clean, give it a quick scuff with probably some 320 sandpaper, and then we'll hit it with some primer. And then once our primer's done, we'll come back and we'll hit it with some gloss black. Okay, so now we got this roughed up and all the dust cleaned off. We're gonna go ahead and hit this with some primer, and then we'll be ready for some paint. So, here we go. So we'll call that coat 1. I'll stick this over in front of the heater so it'll dry a bit. And while this is drying, we'll go have a look at getting that bit of Bondo cleaned up on the other panel. So there's our panel. Their Bondo pretty much cured now, so I'm going to come in here, get this evened up so it'll be like the back side. You can see where I filled this hole, cut this stuff back in again. So I'm going to do the same along here now with this hole filled and this hole filled. And hopefully after this bit of sanding and filing, we should be ready to go ahead and put some primer on this. So I'll bring you back very shortly and let you look at what we get done. So I think at this point I'm just going to come in here and clean up this last bit of crap and stuff that's clinging on right here. Have a look at the rest, make sure everything else feels smooth. Then I'm going to throw a quick coat of primer just on this section here, just to see how it looks. And that'll give us a good idea as to whether or not we're done or we might need a little bit more. So I'm going to get this area cleaned up. We're going to hit it with a little bit of primer and let's take a quick look. So from here, that's looking pretty good. Let's pick it up and bring it up close. Hopefully we'll catch some light here. So, all in all, I'd say it's not too bad for what we had. Let me see if I can get this to focus a bit tighter. Focus here, please. There you go. So yeah, I think I'm going to be content with that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the rest of the piece because there's a bit of fiberglass goo and stuff on it from where there's some fiberglassing on it. We'll just give it a quick scuff all over with some 320 and we'll go ahead and we'll get some primer on this whole piece. Okay, so we've got our repaired side panel sanded and ready for primer. Let's go ahead and get a couple coats on there. Okay, let's call that coat 1. Let's go ahead and check it and see how our headlight housing is doing. Okay, so here's our headlight housing and we're ready for coat 2 of some primer. So we've got our housing with 2 coats of primer on it. That's in front of the heater there, so it'll dry up nice. Once that's done drying, we're gonna hit that with some glossy black. We've got our right side panel primed. That's coat number 1. So when that dries up a bit, we'll go ahead and hit that with coat number 2. And then we'll be ready to do some light sanding on this, do some light sanding on these, and do some light sanding on this. Wet sanding, mind you. And those 4 components should be ready for some Honda Passion Red. Okay, let's get some gloss black, or first coat of gloss black on this headlight housing. Okay, I'm going to hit the headlight assembly with coat number 2. And then we'll leave this to dry for a day or 2 before we put our clear coat on it. Okay, so the last bit now for this evening. One more quick coat of primer. This will be our 3rd coat on the side panel. And once that dries, we should be good to do a bit of wet sanding, get it nice and smooth, and ready for some paint. So there we go. That's our last coat of primer for this right-hand side panel. I got to think of it every time I say which side there. We'll just come in for a quick look at the repair we did. So remember before, maybe I'll try to get a before and after shot of what this looked like before we fixed it. As it stands right now, it looks good enough for me. So let's give this a chance to dry, and we'll get down on some wet sanding for this side panel, that side panel, the rear fender, and the gas tank. Okay, so we've given the headlight enclosure overnight to dry up, so now we're going to go ahead and hit it with a bit of clear coat. This is coat number 1 of our clear. We'll give this the requisite amount of time to dry. We'll come back and hit it with another coat. Okay, 3rd last coat of clear. We should be good to set this aside and let it dry. We'll wait till reassembly. So now that our headlight enclosure is all done, and we've got our rear fender and our tank and our 2 side covers that are over that way painted, or I mean primed and ready for prep for paint, I'm gonna go ahead and just do some light sanding on each of those parts now, so it is absolutely ready to be painted. So that's the rear fender wet sanded. You see a couple spots where it went down into the etching primer, but that should be fine. It's feeling super smooth, nice and slick. So I'm going to set this aside to dry, and we'll continue on with our side panels, and then we'll get the tank done. So there's our left side panel. Things feeling nice and smooth. I even did where the stickers are going. Not like it took an extra long amount of time or anything, but all this feels nice and slick. So the paint should take that really well. So once again, stick this aside to dry. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side cover. I'll take that one off camera, and then I'll take the tank up and we'll do the tank quick on camera. So there's our repaired side panel. Wet sanded, nice and smooth. Ready for final cleanup and paint. You can see where we fixed it here. It's looking real good. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. So let's get the tank on the stool. We'll get this to focus, and we'll go ahead and get the tank wet sanded. So that's the tank. Woo! Watch it there. So that's the tank, wet sanded. It feels nice and smooth all over. Still a bit of a dip there by the look of it. I also noticed on this side, you can see the way the light reflects through right there. But I'm hoping that with the sticker there, it won't be noticeable. I didn't even realize there was an indentation there when I was prepping the tank. But either way, so there's our parts for paint, rear fender, two side covers, and the tank. I just finished giving them a quick wash down with some water and wiping them down clean so all the dust is off them after the wet sanding. So now I'm going to lay these on my toolbox bench here, cover them all up so they don't get covered in dust. And like I mentioned, next thing up for these is going to be some paint.